Hello, I'm Sarah L and welcome to this edition of Boating New Zealand On Demand, where we showcase this month's magazine and bring you the latest in news, reviews and what's been happening on the boating scene. First up, we have an exclusive review of this month's cover boat, the Extreme 645cc. This centre console sport fisher won the Supreme Boat of the Show award at this year's Hutch Wilco New Zealand Boat Show, and our new editor John Eichelschein was the first to get aboard her on the water.
John Eichelschein for Boating New Zealand magazine. Today I'm on the Extreme 645 centre console. It's the Hutch Wilco Boat of the Show winner, Supreme winner, and we're going to find out why. I'm on board with Matt Cranswick from Extreme Boats. Matt, this boat is exceptional in many ways, but what's clear to me straight away is it's very much a fisherman's machine, a fishing machine. Yeah. And if we start here at the transom, there's just so much to talk about. There's so much that Extreme has thought about with fishermen in mind. This bait station, for instance, I mean, so many features on it, right down to the little cup holder and all kinds of things. How is it that you've come up with these sorts of ideas? Where did this come from?
Basically just trying to refine things, John, over the years. You can always improve on what you're producing, and we use the boats a lot and we find little things that we can improve on through use. And yeah, we've got some great customers that have brought boat after boat and sort of stuck with the brand, and they're continually giving us a little bit of feedback as well. So we are constantly trying to improve things. Little example of this, we've sort of kept the drawers not so much flush mounted now. We've got a little bit of a lip over the front of them just to stop a little bit of that water running into the drawers.
Okay.
We've incorporated little tool holders here, which are pretty handy for putting pliers, things like that in. Knife slots, you can put your knives in there, keep them out of the way now. So you're just constantly trying to better what we've got, I guess, is the term for it. You can always improve, can't you? So you
can always improve. Look, I like the way you've integrated the tuner tubes here into the transom. That works very nicely. Obviously we've got the live bait tank. I mean, that's quite a common position these days for a live bait tank, but drop-in transom doors. Yeah,
they're handy. Obviously the walk-through transom's super handy when you're coming in and out of the boat if you're diving and bits and pieces like that, or at the wharf. But when you're out at sea, if you're backing into a little bit of slop, it's nice to be able to drop the door in place and reduce a little bit of that water that might otherwise sort of kick up over the back there. So
and of course when the door's out, you've got easy access to the platform at the back here, and you've got a semi cage there which works very nicely indeed.
Yeah, they do. Those cages are fantastic. You've got a swinging gate on one side, which is handy if you come into the shallows and you just want to step off the boat, and then you've got a drop down ladder on the other side, which is obviously great for getting in and out when you're diving and coming up onto the trailer, etc. And it sort of doubles as a fishing area too. You can actually step out the back of the boat and really lock yourself in there, so it's
that's right.
Utilises that part of the boat.
Get a bit of mess out of the boat that way as well.
Yeah.
Not that there's a problem with getting rid of mess with this boat. I see we've got a couple of washdowns here.
Yes, there is. Yep. It's always handy to be able to wash a bit of mess away while you're out at sea and save it baking on throughout the day.
And keeping your hands clean is easy as well, because we've got a couple of these very handy hand washers, one each side. Now, Matt, this is a centre console boat. It's only 6.45 metres, I guess. You wouldn't expect to find cooking facilities on a boat of this length, but somehow you've managed to squeeze that in.
Yeah, that's a little bit of clever work from all our team, really. One thing that I'm quite proud of with our team back at Extreme Boats is we all do love boating and boats and fishing, and in your spare time you're out there using it, and a lot of the ideas are from our team, so Yep, they come up with these clever little ideas as to what we can do with the space that we've got. You've only got so much space, and
Well, this whole area is a great use of space. We've not only got this incorporated into it, we've got quite a bit of storage in these drawers, and we've got a rubbish bin on the side.
Yep.
We've got more storage on the other side. It's amazing how much use you've made of that. Even in the top, we've got a bit of storage space.
yeah, you never have too much storage in a boat, eh?
No, and I guess that's, if there's a weakness with the centre console, that's probably it, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
it's where do
yeah.
you put things, where do you keep things dry? But you've got plenty of options here.
Yeah, 100%. If you've got storage for, in a boat, you've got an organised boat, eh? So,
Indeed.
yeah, that's key.
So Matt, what's different about the console design on this boat, as compared to previous extremes?
In this one here, we've modified the seating quite a bit. We've changed that up from what we have done in previous years.
Mm-hmm.
But probably the biggest change, and to me I think the best change actually on this particular vessel anyway, is the bow configuration. Typically in a centre console, the bow of the boat's a little bit underutilised. You've got your side skins sort of kick up there, so you don't have a lot of level footing as such, and there's a portion of the boat that's typically quite underutilised in a console. So we've tried to change that, and the way we've done that with this particular boat anyway is we've incorporated a stand-up casting deck here, which has allowed the angler to obviously get up a little bit higher, which is great for sight fishing and that sort of thing. And we've also allowed a little bit of toe kick underneath, which really helps. Like you can
Yes.
get your toes underneath this here, and you can really lock yourself in up the front of the boat. So if you're casting on a really rough day and you don't want to get up onto this casting deck, you can lock yourself in here nicely.
Still utilise this bow area even when it's
Yeah. And then on top of that, the other thing that often lacks in a console is fish storage, and that can be an issue. There's not a lot of places to put a great big chili bin or esky on a console typically. And
Right.
what we've done here is we've actually built a custom fish box underneath the casting deck, which
Should we take a look at that?
the team at High Tech Plastics have done for us and done a great job of it. So you just lift up the lid, and you've got your fish box
there.
built in there. Basically, the lid's all built into the top of the casting deck, so it comes up with you. You don't actually have to remove the lid to throw your fish in, so it works really well. And it's removable, so at the end of the day you can lift the spin out and take the catch off the boat. So
Fantastic.
and if you're not going out for a serious day's fishing and you just want the storage, well, you've got a whole lot more storage in there as well. So, but by doing this, John, we've actually sort of come up with another issue, or not an issue, but something that we had to overcome. And by having the extended casting deck and the fish storage,
Yes.
with our typical console, it's a one-piece lift-up seat, and we've narrowed this gap up slightly, which meant that we couldn't quite
do
lift
that.
our door up. So
have you solved that problem?
the way that we've solved that problem is by bifolding the door, and again that's just a bit of smart thinking from the team back at the factory there. So it's just a bifolding system, so basically you lift up the door.
Now this boat is also fitted with the Haswing trolling motor or electric motor, bow motor. So what have you done about battery storage for that?
So the battery storage again is down in this area here, John, underneath the squabs there. So you've got plenty of room for those sort of things,
Right.
which is out of the way. It's all weather-tight and sealed, which is very important.
So we're taking advantage of the Haswing at the moment. It's holding us nicely in place. It's on spot lock right now. I guess you're getting quite a bit of sort of demand for electric motors these days?
Absolutely, yeah. The electric trolling motors are becoming more and more common. A lot of people lure fishing, soft baiting, jigging up at the lakes.
Yep.
So they come in handy for all sorts out in the deep when you're, otherwise couldn't anchor on a deep pinnacle. You can
right.
hold yourself there. So
We'll come back to more of John's story on the Extreme later. If you're looking for something with a bit more space to stretch out in, we've got a first glimpse of the new Maritimo M55 flybridge cruiser at the Sanctuary Cove Boat Show in May. Australian builder Maritimo's flybridge cruisers have put it on the global map, and the new M55 is its latest luxurious offering. The M55 offers 3 levels of living space and commanding views from the helm. To stop it from being too top-heavy, it's beamier than most of its rivals, and its lightweight laminate schedule and flybridge superstructure are designed to minimise weight. At the stern is the massive Adventure Deck, a vast teak swim platform with a hydraulic aft section to float a tender, and including a full beam wet bar. The entire transom deck hinges open to reveal a 2.8 metre tender garage. The large aft cockpit is completely shaded by the flybridge overhang. More lounging space is found up on the bow. Heading inside, there's plenty of room to relax out of the weather. The galley has a large upright refrigerator, microwave and separate oven with a 3-plate electric hob. The generous beam and tall windows placed at eye height when resting on the couches or at the fold-out dining table add to the feeling of space in the saloon. Forward is the staircase down to the 3 cabins, including the massive owner's suite with its 1.9 metre headroom and generous ensuite. Up the wide internal staircase to the flybridge is another luxury living space. Here there are also joystick controls, the hydraulic wheel and Garmin screens to provide all the information the helmsperson needs. The M55 has a comfortable cruising speed of 22 knots, and on our test we got up to a top speed of nearly 30. The standard engine setup is a pair of Volvo D11 670 horsepower diesels, although the direct shaft drives in this boat are upgraded twin Volvo D13 800s. At a price as tested of just over $2 million New Zealand dollars, the M55 certainly delivers on style and space. You could sure while away a few days on that boat. With the Sail GP circuit in full swing, I was lucky enough to have a chat with Kiwi Emma Outridge, whose husband Nathan helms the Japanese team. But Emma's heart doesn't just lie in the glamorous world of Grand Prix yacht racing, as she tells us in her book, Between Two Worlds. Hi, I'm Sarah L from Boating New Zealand, and today I'm here with Emma Outridge, who's a Kiwi woman who has brought two worlds together, both volunteering in Africa and also the world of the America's Cup. She's married to Nathan Outridge, an America's Cup skipper and Olympian, but she's also been active with a charity in Uganda for many years, raising sponsorships to send children to higher education. She's written this book about her experiences between two worlds, and let's have a talk to her now about how those things have come together. So Emma, you were brought up around the America's Cup and your parents were involved. What makes a Kiwi girl from that kind of background get involved in Central Africa? Can you tell us about how you first went to Kaso and about your experiences there?
Absolutely. I think growing up in the America's Cup world, I kind of thought as a little kid that that was what everyone did, that life was just following the sailing event around the world, which obviously you grow up and realise is not quite the case. I went away to university in Wellington and really just had a bit of an awakening there. I think, you know, being in the university scene, all of a sudden you're learning all these new things, and my eyes were just really open to the fact that there was a whole wide world out there that did not revolve around the America's Cup and sailing, but also that beyond New Zealand there were a lot of people that were doing it quite tough around the world. I sort of had a really pivotal moment in my life seeing the film Hotel Rwanda, which ironically I was doing a ski season in Aspen, Colorado at the time, and really just was shocked to learn that all of these atrocities were going on during my lifetime and that I'd been sort of so unaware, and that really brought Africa rocketing onto my radar. Of course, Africa itself is a huge, diverse continent, but I just got fixated on this idea that life is an accident of birth and that I'd really done nothing to deserve this lucky accident. And so I just wanted to find a way to try and give back and do something meaningful. At the time I was, in my early 20s, and I had these huge dreams of trying to save the world, but to me, going to volunteer somewhere in Africa just sort of gave me a way to try and give back to this world that I felt had always treated me kindly.
And so can you tell us a little bit about the CASO organisation and the children there?
Absolutely. So I still to this day feel so grateful that I discovered CASO. I think of all the places I could have ended up. But CASO itself is essentially a primary school. It was created in 1999 by a phenomenal Ugandan couple called Dominic and Rose. Dominic himself was a poor boy from this village of Kibera where CASO is located. Rose, his wife, was actually the daughter of a prominent magistrate from Kampala, the capital, and she fell for the boy from the wrong side of the tracks. But they were both teachers, and they could just see in 1999 when they created the school, HIV/AIDS was just ripping through the whole area and leaving so many young children orphaned, and they wanted to give those children a way to get a really decent education. Technically in Uganda there's supposed to be free education for all, but the standard in the government schools is so low that you don't have much of a chance if that's where you end up. So they created the school with just 12 young children at the beginning. By the end of the first year there were 49, and it just continued to grow and grow. And eventually parents from the area learnt about the school that wasn't just giving kids a free education, but it was giving them a really top level education, and so they wanted to send their children and were prepared to pay school fees. So that started this whole journey whereby Dominic and Rose run this amazing juggling act, that there are those that can afford to pay school fees and those that can't, and then a whole raft in the middle that will bring along pails of milk or a basket of potatoes from the garden to try and contribute towards their child's education, which means that those students that still really can't afford it can be supported through primary school. And it's not just a primary school, it's really a whole community initiative. CASO itself is an acronym standing for Kibera Adult Attention and School for Orphans, which is quite a mouthful, but it just gets across this idea that they also wanted to help educate the adults of the area. Mostly, a lot of them were illiterate, and they really wanted to just sort of help raise the standard in the whole area as a whole and recognise that it wasn't just the children, it was also the adults that needed some support.
Right. And so the first time you went there was going to Africa a real shock, a real awakening?
Absolutely. Through my childhood travelling a lot through the America's Cup, I kind of felt like I'd been to different places and experienced different things, and naively thought that I was quite a well-travelled 25-year-old, and then arrived in Uganda and was just completely blown away by just how different everything was. There was sort of no common point of reference, nothing that felt like, oh, this is a little bit like home or a little bit normal. Everything just felt so very different. So it was such an extreme culture shock, but an amazing eye-opener, and I very quickly just fell in love with the whole place because it was just a place of such warmth and such incredible laughter. So many people would say to me, oh, it must be so sad going to this primary school that's got a lot of orphans and children, doing it tough. And I would just look around and all you would hear was laughter ringing through the school. And these children, even though technically they didn't have much by our standards, they didn't really know that you were meant to need all these things. And so they just felt really lucky to be at school.
And so then, of course, it was quite a shock for you to go back into that Louis Vuitton Cup, America's Cup world. And how did you cope with that transition?
Not very well at the beginning. If I thought I was unprepared for the shock of arriving in Uganda, I was completely unprepared for the shock of returning to what had always felt like my normal world. I arrived in Nice on the Côte d'Azur to work on the Louis Vuitton Trophy, which was an event that had been set up in the interim between America's Cups. And I was just completely floored by how hard it was transitioning back into what had once been my normal life. And I was constantly converting the price of everything into Ugandan shillings and then working out how much maize that would translate to and then bursting into tears. And I just thought, this is impossible. It's got to be one or the other. You can't live between these two worlds. They're just too different. And I was terrified that I'd have to give up one for the other. And I didn't know what to do because I'd just fallen in love with CASO and Uganda, and I wanted to keep that very much a part of my life. But the sailing world was so much a part of who I was as well, and so I just didn't really know what to do.
So how did you come to that realisation that you could actually act as a bridge between those worlds rather than having to be full-time in one or the other, that you had a role to join those worlds together so they could support and help each other?
It happened slowly over time, and I guess it was actually my community of sailors that helped me to realise it. That once I got over that initial shock of just not being able to talk without bursting into tears all the time, once I finally was able to start telling my stories, I couldn't stop, and all I wanted to do was talk about Kaso. And actually I realised that the people I met in my sailing world, who were so used to having this kind of itinerant, changing countries all the time and moving from place to place and learning to adapt in all the different worlds. I mean, you know, in the America's Cup, people are moving around, they're putting their children in school, they're setting up a new life in all these different countries and different cultures. To them, I don't think it was such a huge leap to think, okay, well, here's this friend of ours who's been in this other totally different world, but let's hear about it. And so then they wanted to support and to help, and I think because they knew that because the time that I had spent there and the connections that I kept with everyone in Uganda, this was a way that was legitimate, that was trustworthy, that was honest, that they could support something that they also had grown to care about. So it was really the people in my community that made me realise that I didn't have to actually give up one for the other, and that the most valuable place I could be was actually right there, straddling those two worlds and connecting both sides. I think the other thing I found really interesting that I never imagined was in the beginning it felt very much like it would be a one-way flow of the people in my sailing community helping these children in the school in Uganda that needed support, whether it was to fund their educations beyond primary at secondary school or whether it was for the different fundraisers I was running. But eventually over time I realised actually the flow was going both ways. And people like Glenn Ashby from Team New Zealand, him and his wife Mel, have been big supporters from the beginning. And they were the ones that were thanking me that through their sponsorship of their girl Viola in Uganda, they were able to teach their children about the value of education and the value of these things that we often take for granted. And I think they were really grateful that I gave them a chance to be part of something meaningful. So it was really nice to realise that it wasn't just a one-way flow, it was going both ways.
So it's pretty exciting now to have your book out in the world, and was it interesting reliving those experiences while you were writing it? Did you work from diaries, or how did you come to write the book?
I did. Well, it's really been a journey writing this book over the last 12 years. I started it in the village in 2009. Once I got to Kaso, I realised it was such a phenomenal story that just, I believed, had to be told of what everyone was doing there. And so I had this huge stack of diaries, and I would just take them everywhere with me and just scroll down notes as to everything everyone said, all the observations around me. So most of the dialogue in the book is literally notated from as it happened. So no, I'm just excited to be able to share this story with a wider audience, and the response has been wonderful. People have been so encouraging and supportive. We had an amazing book launch the other night at the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, which was just so exciting to be able to finally stand up in front of a room full of all these people, a lot of whom were friends from the sailing world, and finally raise a glass of champagne and say, we've done it.
Awesome. Oh, thank you very much for your time, Emma. It's been great talking to Emma today, and keep an eye out for Between Two Worlds. What a great story, and what an inspirational woman. Another boat featured in this month's magazine is the Highfield Patrol 600, an aluminium-hulled rib fitted with the latest in Suzuki outboard technology.
We're here on the first day of winter testing the Highfield Patrol 600. This aluminium hull rib has origins in France, Australia and now New Zealand. The amazing thing with this particular boat is the new Suzuki fly-by-wire system, which has really upped the game for the mid-market, mid-range size engines from Suzuki. The fly-by-wire is a fully electronic throttle and gear shift control, which makes fingertip control of the motor easy. Once the engine is in gear, it is single finger control to advance the throttle. This is just so smooth, yet the throttle is very firm in its position and it does not move when you're bouncing around in a wake. This boat also has electronic switches. Another element of the electronic throttle control is the push button start and stop. No more turning a key to start. This boat is beautifully finished with upholstered seats. It also has nice soft touch catches on the hatches, which are as secure as a stainless hatch, and yet you won't ding your knuckles or your knees when you bump into it. The bow of this boat is set up to enable people to step on and off the boat. It serves its intended purpose as a tender for a larger boat. This boat has an offset centre console, which provides greater space on the port side to carry gear forward and aft. Under the centre console is a large storage compartment on hydraulic stays. When configuring a boat like this, the question often is live bait tank or dry storage? Well, this boat gives you both. The compartment at the back here has the option of being self-flooding or self-draining. So if you want to use it as a live bait tank, you turn off the bilge pump and you allow it to self-flood. There's your live bait tank. When you finish for the day, you want to clean it out, you close off the flooding compartment, you turn on the bilge pump and it drains itself out and there's a dry compartment. This Highfield Patrol 600 comes with a new Suzuki 140 horsepower 4-stroke outboard. This is perfectly matched to the boat. Although the hull is rated for larger engines, we were achieving very close to 40 knots and this motor would be adequate for most purposes. For those who haven't driven a rib like this, the handling is amazing. The advantage of the big tubes is that they sit out of the water when you're at speed. Therefore you have the benefit of the V hull and all the efficiency, and it's a fine angle V hull. However, when you go into a very tight turn, the tubes come into play and they act as big shock absorbers and pull you around. Hence, this rib can do surprisingly tight turns without any concern for the occupants. In the transom of the boat, we have two options for drainage. We have self-draining scuppers, which can be opened up in very big seas where you're taking water into the boat, and then the boat will simply self-drain. Or in calmer seas, you keep those closed, you leave the drain holes open, and the bilge pump in the bilge will take care of it. Here at the back of the boat, we have this big roll bar, which is up-spec'd to enable it to act as a towing platform for water toys and water skiers. It is extremely well manufactured, or well engineered, down to the frame of the hull. We also, unusually on this boat, have some lifting eyes to enable this boat to be lifted as a tender onto a bigger yacht. The helm seat is multi-purpose. Two passengers, or the skipper and a passenger, can sit on the seat, or it can be lifted up to provide standing room. Under the seat is placed for a chili bin to fit. This lifts up, the chili bin slides in, the rail comes down and it holds the chili bin securely in place. One of the nice things about a rib like this is that you never run out of seating, because guess what? The whole boat is a seat. There are reinforced pads just to prevent wear on the tubes, and grab ropes inside and out to keep you secure. Overall, the Highfield Patrol 600 is a fantastic rib. At 6 meters, it has a huge amount of capacity. The performance is amazing with these big tubes. You can go through rough seas, gets nearly 40 knots out of a relatively modest 140 horsepower engine. And the semi-military styling of this boat is very popular at the moment.
I know the guys enjoyed getting some serious airtime on that test. Now let's go back to John for more on the Extreme 645cc.
A solar panel which has been sewn into the canvas up here. We have got a forward-facing light bar for those late evenings if you're coming in. And we've put some racking across here which you can utilise for things like spare guns, the longer sort of bulky items that you might have on a boat that otherwise do get in the way.
Right.
Gaffs, tag poles,
yeah,
bits and
anything
pieces like that,
okay.
John, it works well.
So Matt, this is a centre console boat, but this is a pretty comprehensive console that you've got here. What sorts of equipment have we got?
Yeah, so we've got quite a large console, John. It's great, you know, there's plenty of places to put a lot of gear, store a lot of gear, and it gives you a lot of weather protection as well. But basically, we've got quite a large glass screen up the top there, fantastic on the windy or rougher days. Gives you a lot of shelter even on a cold day. If you're going out for an early morning fish, it's nice to get in behind a little bit of shelter there. We've incorporated the Ray Marine digital switching, which is fantastic, C-zone switching. We've got the Vespa system in this boat here.
Okay.
We've got an adjustable helm, which
That's
on the console is quite a nice feature actually. Yeah, it's nice to be able to sort of stand at times and sit, and you want to be able to adjust your helm to suit really. We've done a few different things, but yeah, probably the bolstered seats here is one thing we have changed. We've made a bolster with sort of kicked out sides, which is great for locking yourself in. Nice footrest at the correct height. So just a whole lot of little things, but they all make a big difference.
Look, it is a comfortable helm position whether you're sitting or standing.
Yeah.
You know, everything falls to hand very nicely, and obviously with this kind of display here, it's all flush mounted as well, which is great. Looks attractive, but it's also practical, and I guess that's the key to it, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I must say a nice touch too, Electrotab auto trim tabs, which is something that we're starting to see a bit more often. Takes a bit of the guesswork out of it. And of course a Fusion stereo system as well, with not just 2 speakers but 4, maybe more. 4 I counted anyway.
Yep.
So, power for this boat, we've got a Mercury 200, a V6. Yep. That's about where you see it sitting. It's certainly plenty of power for the boat.
Yeah, 100%. Typically sort of that 150 to 200 is ample.
So this boat goes pretty well. It's certainly soft riding. It's a dry boat as well. You know, we've had fairly lumpy conditions at times today, and we kept pretty dry, pretty comfortable. This engine certainly suits it very nicely. We're getting along at a good clip, close to 40 knots flat out. And you'd have to say that it has plenty of response. Certainly the punch, the whole shot is great, and this seems to be a particularly good combination with this 200 horsepower engine. So that was our taste of the Extreme 645 centre console. It's a pretty impressive vessel. It's pretty easy to see why it caught the eyes of the judges at the Hutch New Zealand Boat Show.
There are so many great features packed into that little boat. Now, from one extreme to another, the winter weather might be pretty awful, but there's still a hardcore who go out racing every Friday on Auckland Harbour. Our videographer Roger Mills got some great shots of the boats out on the water recently, including rum race veteran Mark Roberts and his team on the Young Rocket 31 Extreme. Hopefully it won't be long before the weather comes right and we can enjoy shorts and t-shirt racing again. Well, that's all from us this month. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you'd like to learn more, pick up the magazine from your local newsagent or subscribe at www.boatingnewzealand.co.nz. See you next month.